After being diagnosed with a serious heart condition in the year of 2000, that's life-altering, unexpected, and having an extreme feeling of hopelessness. What do you do? Where do you turn? Is it faith? Is it inner strength? Or is it both? My guest today on the Energy Bar will reveal to us what did it take for her to recover from such a serious illness to reaching people from every walk of life today, right here on the Energy Bar. Rediscover your passion and begin building a strong, vibrant, and happier life to get you from where you are to the life you were born to live. From Wall Street to Main Street, we bring it all right here inside of Energy Bar. Cynthia Jones is a preacher, an author, a speaker, a motivational speaker, an inspirational speaker, someone who lives every day in the trenches, speaking to men and women and children about destiny and about purpose. And I want you to help me welcome her to our show today as she embraces this opportunity to share this platform with me and sharing her story and also hope for many who may be going through the same thing. You know, this month at the time of this recording is many women are looking at their history as far as heart conditions and heart disease and are wondering about their diagnosis and their prognosis, their future. And I want those who know women who have experienced heart disease or are going through heart disease to make sure that you share this broadcast with them. Cynthia Jones, welcome to the Energy Bar.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for having me.
It is such a pleasure. When I read your bio and I remembered the reading about the heart surgeries that you had experienced. Can you tell us, or will you tell us, Cynthia, what was going on in your life before you had this diagnosis?
Well, before I received the diagnosis, I was working a full-time job in corporate America, and I was also working pretty much every other spare hour that was left in the day at my church. I was the church administrator at that time, and I was a single parent raising my son. So I would literally leave my corporate America job, pick up my son, grab his homework, pick up a meal on the road, and head to church to do things that needed to be done there, whether it was in the business office, whether it was setting up for ministry, teaching a class, taking care of my bishop at the time. I was just out busy. I was busy doing what I thought were the things that God wanted me to do. And it's not that any of those things were bad things, but in the midst of doing all of those things, I wasn't taking care of myself. So when my body started showing signs that something wasn't right, I kept going anyway, as opposed to taking the time, maybe slowing down, taking it easy, letting go some of my responsibilities. But as women, we feel that we're the ones who have to do it.
Why are we like that? Why are we like that?
I don't know. I think because we're nurturers, and if you're you have the personality that I have, a type A personality, no one can do it as good as I can do it. Mm-hmm. So, and I know when I do it, it's going to be done right. It's going to be done the way I want it to do. And so I'll make the sacrifice and I'll do it. But I made a huge sacrifice because I sacrificed my health and what I thought was in the work of the Lord. Mm-hmm. And so when I was diagnosed and as I was in and out of the emergency room, every other week and going back and forth to the hospital because I would get one prescription after another. And in essence, they were treating the problem, but they didn't know what the problem was. So
what were they treating, Cynthia?
well, my condition is called endocarditis. And that's just a very big word for my heart valve was infected. And because when your heart valve gets infected, the blood that's pumping through your veins is pumping through that infection. So I was misdiagnosed with a kidney infection, and then I think there was a bone infection and some other different infections. So, of course, they give you antibiotics, and they send you on your way. And the moment I came off the antibiotics, I was sick again. So when I finally went to the hospital after going through this for about 6 weeks, I finally went back to the emergency room. I was admitted this time. And about 2 days later, I was diagnosed with endocarditis. But they were treating the symptoms. They were not treating the problem. No one took the time to find out what the problem was.
Because this infection was showing up all over in your bloodstream.
Yeah.
So they were just, okay, oh, I hear you. Okay,
right.
Go ahead.
Exactly. That's what was going on. And at the time, I was only 38 years old. Mm-hmm. So who's thinking that a healthy 38-year-old has a heart condition? I have no history of it in my family, so no one even checked to look at my heart. I think it was a fluke that they realized it was my heart. Mm-hmm. And that was probably the last thing that they looked at while I was a patient in the hospital. And then when they realized it was my heart, then I was transferred to a different hospital. And then I was assigned a cardiologist who is still my cardiologist today. He's been my cardiologist for 18 years now. Mm-hmm. And I got the right treatment, but it took years because even though the problem was addressed and the problem was connected, God has a way of taking you through a process. And so I had to go through an extremely long process. I was in the hospital for months at a time. I watched the seasons change. The first time I went in was a coat, and when I came out, it was summer. Oh. And each time I was admitted to the hospital, that's what would happen. I was in for the long haul. It's no couple of days and then you're out. It's everyone on the staff, everyone throughout the hospital. And but I realize now, looking back, it was a process. God was doing a work in me. He was preparing me for what he had already in store for me. And so as I began to grow, I got better and I had my first surgery, came home. I went through the healing process. 1 year, almost to the day, I was back in the hospital again. And then a couple years went by, almost to the day again. It always happened around the same time of the year. I was back in the hospital again. And it kept happening and kept happening. And I was, each time they did the surgery, they repaired the valve 3 separate times. And on the 4th time, they replaced it. So I got a valve replacement in 2007. And then the true healing process began because I have not been back, for that same condition.
What was going on?
God had to do a work.
Yeah. What was going on in your mind while you're going through this process? Okay. So you're plugged into the medical community and you're being misdiagnosed initially. And then you're going back and forth to the ER, you're being given antibiotics, and then you end up having a relapse or, going back in, and you're going through this vicious cycle. What is going on mentally? I like to deal with people's minds and their emotions. What is going on there in your mind during this time, Cynthia?
Well, the first time when I was going back and forth being misdiagnosed to the emergency room, I was angry.
Okay.
I was angry that they weren't treating whatever the problem was.
Yeah.
And I wasn't angry so much because they weren't getting it right. I was angry because, look, this is slowing me down. I got things to do. I got things that I've got to get to, and I'm having to go sick because you only have so many sick days. So I started having to go to work sick. I was going to church sick. and I was tired of it. When I was on the antibiotics, I was fine.
Right.
I could function. I could do everything. And the moment I came off it, then bam, it hit me.
It was
And so I was angry.
You were angry, okay? Because
I was angry.
These are real issues that people have every day.
Yeah.
And so you went through the anger, the frustration, I would think, with the entire process. And you said something that is so important. You said you were angry because it was slowing you down.
Slowing me down. Yeah.
And that's the very thing that you're wanting to get back to, that got you to the place of being sick.
You're right.
So
you're right. But at that moment,
jump back in, I know in that moment, but you're wanting to jump back in there with the sharks.
Right. I wasn't there yet.
Not realizing that was the very thing that was making you sick. Cynthia, I want to deal with this. I want to talk about this because it's so prevalent that many Christians, many believers think that I'm working for God. So God's going to protect me because I'm working for God. The thing
that was me.
The thing is, God doesn't need us to work for him. God's looking for people that will work with him. Because his yoke is easy, his burden is light. He's not driving us into insanity or heart conditions or doing those things. And so we get possessed of busyness. And it begins to drive us. And we think because we're moving, we're being productive, or we're on our mission, or we're in destiny, or we're in purpose. But that's not necessarily so. So I wanted to deal with that and really break it down, as you can see that I wanted to, is that the emotions that are attached to it. And folks, listen to this. Cynthia, educated, smart, intelligent woman, is saying to us today that she was caught up in that busyness and this thing of trying to serve, taking care. I heard you. You were taking care of the bishop. You were working. You had home responsibilities. You were on the go. You look like a woman that had something going on, didn't you?
All the time.
And you did have something going on, but it was on the inside.
It was. And looking back on it now, because I've been delivered from that busyness, looking back on it now, that's why I had to sit in the hospital for months. Because when I was released from the hospital, I went right back to the same thing. It took years for me to get the point. And to sit there when you're used to going and going and going, and to be confined to a hospital bed in a hospital room, that was hard. Yeah. And so you lay there and you get to know God on a different level, because I never doubted my healing. That never took place. I was never even hopeless. I was more frustrated. I was more angry. But I never doubted I was going to walk out the hospital. Right. I don't care how many surgeries they told me I had to have. Because the first time I was admitted to the hospital, they didn't even expect me to survive. It took one of the reasons I was in the hospital for so long. I went in the hospital in March. I didn't have the surgery until June. One of the reasons it took so long was because the infection was so severe that they couldn't even do the surgery. So they spent months trying to get my body healed. I was anemic. I was dehydrated. You name it. I had not taken care of my temple at all. I took care of everyone else, but I did not take care of my temple. I'm busy. I got this to do for the Lord. I got this to do for my son. I got a job I have to report to at 7:00 every day. I don't have time to worry about this. And so when I'm laying in the hospital, the first revelation I received laying in the hospital, what I thought could not be done or could only be done by me, was now all of a sudden being done by other people.
There you go. Folks, so many of us, especially those of you who are caretakers, and I was addressing that actually in our prayer group. We have a morning prayer group, like an intentional group, a focus group, and we meet when as often as we can. And one of the things that we have to look at is that those of us who are giving, nurturing people, and typically it is women, sorry guys, I know some of you are nurturing also, but you get to that place where you feel if it's going to be done, you have to do it, or you feel that you can do it better than anyone else. And that the world is depending upon you to make sure that it's done. We're having conversations today with Elder Cynthia Jones. She's an ordained minister, an inspirational speaker, and certainly a motivator for us who must change our lifestyles if we want to have a healthy existence upon this planet. A long life is not necessarily a quality life. And we want to make sure that we shift our thinking so that we can have a long life with the quality that God has intended for us to have. And so I think it's time for all of us, ladies and gentlemen, to pay attention to what's being said in this conversation today so that we can make some changes and be stronger and live longer. I'll be right back.
Think back to the last time you felt healthy and energized. The best times of our lives occur when we're at the peak of our health, sleeping better, full of energy and focus. We know that fades with age, and you might be feeling the effects of aging as low energy and poor sleep. But it doesn't have to be that way. There haven't been any nutrition systems designed to rejuvenate our bodies as we get older until now. Healthy Cell Pro is the only multi-nutrient system that impacts the building block of your body, the cell. Created by anti-aging expert and Nobel Prize nominee, Dr. Vincent Giampapa, award-winning Healthy Cell Pro cuts through the complexity of nutrition supplements by simply giving you the purest ingredients, filling dietary gaps to nourish your cells and enhance your quality of life for optimal performance. Visit healthycell.com and use code OUTLOUD for an exclusive discount, or call 844-869-9958.
Welcome back to the Energy Bar. My guest today is Elder Reverend Cynthia Jones, and she's here with us having this conversation about, well, the way that she was running on empty.
Yes.
And when you run on empty, you're gonna it's gonna stop. You're gonna end up on the side of the road. And so that happened to Cynthia, and she was sharing with us earlier how, four different surgeries, Cynthia?
Four.
Fourth
yes.
one, you had a valve replacement. But after your first surgery, you're still wanting to get back into the race.
Yes, I did get back in the race. It took a couple months because my body was not going to let me just jump right back in, but I tried. I found out I couldn't, because after an open heart surgery, you are out of breath, you are short-winded. I remember my mother was here taking care of me, and I had just been released from the hospital, and you can't drive for 6 weeks after you have open heart surgery because if you have an accident, they don't want the steering wheel or the airbag to open up your stitches.
Oh, wow.
So they'll let you be a passenger, but they don't let you drive. And so my mother was going to the store, and I was like, I want to go. I've been in the hospital for months. And so we get to the store, and she tells me to get in one of those carts where you can ride along, where you're it's the mobilized cart.
Okay.
And I told her, I said, that's for old people. I'm not getting in that. And so I think I made it maybe down the first aisle, and I ended up telling her, I'll see you in the car. And it took me forever to get back to the car because you feel strong when you're in the bed recovering because you're really not moving, you're not exerting energy. But when you have that that open heart surgery,
Mm-hmm.
you are very, very short-winded. You're very out of breath. The least little thing makes you tired. You feel strong. You feel like you can leap tall buildings in a single bound when you're laying in the bed. But then when you get up, your body is telling you can't do it. So although in my mind, I was intending to go right back to the church, the job, I was good because I was on disability from the job. But I was intending to go right back to the church, but my body quickly let me know that that was not an option. So I waited the full, I believe it was 8 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't drive for 6 weeks, but I think it was a full 8 weeks before you could get back to your normal schedule. And even with that, I couldn't just run back in the way I wanted to because I was tired. I was just too tired to do the schedule I had before. But a couple months down the road, I was right back to it. And then another year went by, and bam, I'm back in the hospital, and back in the hospital, and back in the hospital. That last time I got the message, I realized that, you know, I'm going to have to make some changes. And for me, my sickness wasn't about my eating.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't really have to make changes to my diet. My body mass index was fine. All of that was good. I do eat much more healthy now than I did before, but that wasn't an issue. My issue was I thought I was Superwoman. And some days I still do think I'm Superwoman.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, when my body speaks to me, even though I may feel like I'm Superwoman, I hear my body this time. I don't tune out the warning signs. And because I have my own company, and I like to say I work for the Lord now. I don't punch a clock for anyone else. So when my body says, look, slow down, I'm working from home. I'm not out networking. I'm not out doing the running around or whatever it is I do. I listen and I slow down and I work from home. I'll sit here with my laptop, my phones, my emails, my texts. I'm still working, but my body is relaxing. It's not running around.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did learn that lesson because it will get done. Whether you're sitting in the hospital or whether you're 6 feet under, it will get done one way or another.
So what you're saying,
it doesn't have to be by me.
Absolutely. And the other thing I hear you say is that here you are, you're eating healthy. You're pretty much, you appear on the outside to be a person that's in excellent health.
Right.
But on the inside, your body is stressing.
Right.
Because in your mind, I'm going to pick at this for a little while, Cynthia, because I have to.
Go ahead.
In your mind, you're thinking you are doing this work for the Lord, and you have energy, you feel strong, but yet your body on the inside is crying out for attention from another place, and that you need to learn how to rest and let go, because not only are you moving physically, you are also moving against the grain of what's natural for your purpose and destiny. Many of us think because we're doing good things that we're doing godly things. We're doing God called things. We are in destiny. We are in purpose. And so therefore, as long as this engagement, this speaking, this opportunity is part of my destiny, is inside of something that I normally do, then I feel that it's okay. But I have learned through life that you can't take every speaking engagement. You can't go everywhere people want you to go and do everything other people want you to do, because it has to feel good on the inside. It has to be in alignment with your true core, your true calling that's working from the inside out. And I teach people this, that God's yoke is easy and burden is light, which means there's no stress in the calling. There's no stress in what we are aligned to do for purpose. So folks, if you're running, and I know many of you do, you're running and you're doing good things and you think you gotta, but as Cynthia has just told us, there are other people that can keep moving. She said the first thing she realized was that it kept going. Somebody else will step in to your surprise and carry on. And let me tell you, there's another level to that. They may just do it better than you were doing it. They may come up and be more creative than you were doing it. So don't think that you're the answer to everything and every problem, because
Right.
God has somebody else. There will be somebody else. Go to the cemetery and discover that those people were at one point in their lives felt like the world couldn't live without them.
Yeah.
And the world keeps on moving. Because when you're stressed, you're putting stress on your heart. And that's your life source. That's your life force.
It is.
And
It is.
it's also the mental stress that leads to the physical stress. Because Cynthia, let's talk about this. When you were in that role, you're in your role and you're just doing what you're doing, you know, you're in the trenches, you're moving, you're shaking. Are you thinking at any time that your mind is overloaded? Did you ever?
Oh, yeah.
Did you say,
Yeah.
because the point is, when your mind is in overload, your body is too. Because
Yeah.
as we think, so are we.
But again, I didn't realize that then. I realize that now. But I also want to say it wasn't so much, at least in my case, it wasn't so much that I wanted to do everything. I didn't know how to say no. I've learned that lesson now. So things just kept being piled on me. Cynthia will do it. Cynthia will do it. Cynthia's got this.
You were the go-to
Cynthia knows
girl.
how to do this. Yes, that was my issue. I didn't reach out to grab all of these things that I was doing, but because, and I operate with a spirit of integrity. And if I say I'm going to do it, I move heaven and earth to do it. And I not only do things because I've been asked to do them, I do them exceeding abundantly and above what you can ask or think. I work with the spirit of excellence in everything that I do, or I don't put my hands on it. And so now you're giving me one thing to do, and then there's 5 things to do, and then there are 10 things to do. Well, you can't do all those things in the spirit of excellence.
No.
Something's going to suffer.
Yeah.
And your body is going to suffer. And in my case, I was stressing over how to do it all, how to meet the expectations that were constantly being thrown at me.
Let me
But
ask
I
you
learned.
this. You learned, but let me ask you
I
this.
learned.
Yeah, let me ask you this. Did you ever feel like you did not want to disappoint people?
All the time.
See, that's a part
All
of
the
it,
time.
isn't it? That's a
Yes.
part of stressing, because
Yes.
you have said yes. You said yes, yes, and yes, and yes, and yes. And now you have a dozen people expecting you to perform.
Yes. And
Because,
that's the major difference in my life from then till now.
yeah, we know
Because
you're
I've
the
learned to
golden
say
child.
no.
We know you. Hey, listen, we know you're the golden child now.
I can say no now.
Yeah, you've been through the fire, but for most people, they haven't gotten there yet. So
Yeah,
the story in the conversation today is speaking to the people, those people who are still in that space. And sometimes you can see it on people where they are just rushing, rolling.
Yes.
They got all these different pieces moving from church, community, and all of these things they have to do, and not realizing that something is amiss. And until, and it's sad that it takes a trip to ER, or even worse,
right,
for people to slow down and to recognize that God does not call us away from Him, but to Himself, to enter the rest. And people who don't believe in God or don't want to hear about God, it still applies to you, whether you hear about Him, want to hear about Him or not. It still applies to you. That if you're in a life, you're in a space where you feel like the world is dependent upon your arrival, it is not. You've got to slow it down. That doesn't mean you don't get things done, does it, Cynthia?
Not at all. Because I think I get just as much done now, if not more than I did before, but I'm strategic.
There you go.
In what I do and where I go. I'm strategic about it. And I put God first. in everything that I do, and I always did. But what the difference is now, I spend more time with him.
Yeah.
Before, I was so busy taking care of everything else that had been assigned to me. That's going to interfere with your prayer life. That's going to interfere with your time with God, because you're busy doing. Now, I don't let anything interfere with that. That is already pre-scheduled in my day, pre-scheduled, that my time with God comes before anything else anyone asks me to do. And so I've learned, but I had to learn it by way of the hospital. I had to learn it by way of surgery. And so when I minister to people, learn from my mistakes. I've seen so many women in the church go down just because of this same reason. They're so busy doing, and they're not taking care of their bodies. And I can see it on other people because I was that person. And we do it every day. We do it in corporate America. We do it with our families. And it's killing us.
Yeah. The deception is that we can multitask. And no, we cannot. We can really not. We can only do one thing excellent at a time. We can have the result of many things that have been done with excellence, but we can only do one thing excellent at a time, because that's the way we are wired. And ladies and gentlemen, this is a great time for you to pause on your life, to get your pen and pad, not the electronics. I suggest don't use your computer for this. Go get that thing we call an ink pen, and get a tablet that's paper, and put the pen to the pad and write down, make a list of the things that must be done, and have at least no more than 3 major things every day. I have found that works, and I have taught people to use this method. It works all the time. 3 major things to accomplish in one day. When you do this, anything else will filter in and out, and it will be smooth. Divine strategy and tactical approaches to life. And if we go back and we take a look at in the beginning, God, there was a strategy there. There was an approach. And the result was, it was good. And you can rest. You can enter the rest and not be taxing your mental body, that's the first thing that gets taxed. And then it spreads into your physical body, from your mental body to your physical body. And then you have a harvest that you won't like if you don't do it right. So in this age of fast and quick and instant and app this and app that and click this and like that, we have to take a pause and say, you know what? I am important. We can't give away what we don't possess. And I know, folks, you've listened to me say that so many times, and I'll keep saying it because it's truth. When you run out of energy, you cannot save anybody else. You cannot even save yourself. To your own self, be true. Cynthia, this is a great conversation, and I do want to continue this. And I know on this show we take many twists and turns, but we want people, we want to get we want to help as many people as we can to be empowered with truth, with nuggets that they can take and live by. Folks, especially you women, us women, that we are nurturers and we are loving, we are kind, we want to do so much, we want to help. Thank God we're like we are. That's what makes women the mothers. Thank God we're like that. We have to establish some boundaries. Good word, right, Cynthia? Boundaries?
Very good word. Boundaries. Yeah.
And we're going to come back with that thought here in just a moment as Cynthia Jones and I continue this conversation on Don't Let the Church Kill You.
The goal is to deliver a message of truth, inspiration, and hope to the world, to unite people from all backgrounds and beliefs in an effort to advance humanity. News blogs, informative podcasts, and entertaining videos. It's AmericaOutloud.com, where the conversation never ends, with 24/7 streaming on our free apps on both Android and Apple. Welcome to the new era in communications, America Out Loud Talk Radio.
Welcome back to Energy Bar. And before we went on that break, I made the statement, don't let the church kill you, because it is so true. You're working for God, and all that they're going to say at your funeral or your homegoing services, boy, did she work hard. Boy, was she really good. Oh, and I remember when she baked all the cakes and she did this for all the community and how wonderful she is. And then you read the obituary. She was only 30, 35. Something is wrong with that obituary. Something is wrong with that picture. When people are working themselves to death and thinking that they're doing God a service. We have pastors, preachers that are having heart attacks in the pulpit. I got a report yesterday, and he's older than 38, but a pastor couldn't finish his message yesterday. Wow. Because of health issues. They didn't know if he was having a heart attack or a stroke, but he had to leave the pulpit. And that's not God's way, people. So Cynthia, tell us about boundaries, because you've been through that hell and back. So you've got some keys to show us.
I have a lot of keys. Yes.
Yeah. So tell us about, I mentioned keys, but tell us about the boundaries.
Well, one of the things that I learned, first of all, I learned to say no, because I learned it will get done whether I do it or someone else does it. It will get done. But one of the things that I learned, I was doing things because I was asked to do them, not so much because I wanted to do them. So in some instances, I was outside of my lane. Not that I couldn't do what I was being asked to do, but it wasn't where my passion was. It wasn't where my desire was, and it wasn't God's destiny for me.
Right.
So now I'm moving in my purpose. I'm moving in my destiny. And if I can help the bishop I have now, if I can help my bishop, I do. I'm happy to help my bishop, but my focus is on what God called me to do. My focus is on my destiny. So my boundaries are set that nothing takes my focus off of what God has ordained me to do, because nobody can do what God called you to do but you. But the enemy can distract you with all kind of what we think are good things and what we think are God things. But God has a purpose and a plan for your life. He has an anointing for your life. He has something that he set aside for you to do. And when you're busy doing all of these other things, how are you going to accomplish what God put in your heart to do? And that was the biggest thing that I've learned. And that's why I set this huge, strong boundary around me, because I lost focus before. I incorporated Cee-Jay Ministries in 2001. I didn't really start doing what God called me to do until 2012. I didn't start pushing it. I didn't start getting in God's presence and seeking, okay, God, this is where I am now. What is it that you want me to do for you now? Not building someone else's ministry, and I'm not taking anything away from that. But Lord, what do you want me to do in this season, in this hour? And when I slowed down and got with God, instead of worrying about, well, this one has this over here, and the church needs this, and this ministry needs that. Once I got outside of that, I could hear God clearly in what he wants me to do. And that's my boundary right there. My destiny is my boundary.
That's beautiful. Very well said. My destiny is my boundary. So it's not stopping everything and thinking, okay, then I don't need to do anything, but just
Right.
reassessing what is true, what is good, what is lovely, what is just, what is pure, what is of a
Right.
good report, all of those things that you are called to do, ladies and gentlemen. Take a look at your life. Take a look, a close look at your life and do a self-assessment and then go back in, because whatever it is that you are put on this earth to do, I know for sure that it is connected with other people, but only those people that is not adding burdens or pressure. It's not adding any stress, because there's no blessing in that. But it is those people who are not pulling, they're not takers, they're also givers. There's an even exchange in your network of destiny workers. Those
Yes.
people who are called to be in your circle, there's an even exchange. You're not the one that's always giving. That stresses relationships, Cynthia. When you
Yes.
feel you're always giving, and there's no reciprocity from any direction, it drains the physical, mental, emotional body.
And it
Because,
causes bitterness.
yeah,
You become bitter.
yeah,
And all of
absolutely.
that stuff is in you,
That's
and
it.
it's going to affect you
That's
physically.
it. That's
Hmm.
it. Yeah. Because a broken spirit dries the bone. There comes
Yes.
arthritis and
Yes.
rheumatism and whatever, those bone disorders. But a merry heart do it good like a medicine. And your
Hmm.
heart cannot be happy if it is stressed with, you know what, I've been serving this church, I've been serving the
Yes.
pastor, and
Yes.
there's nothing coming back home to me.
Yes.
And, you know, when you are on that end of just constantly giving and it's not coming back. Cynthia just said that, and I was going to also use the word resentment, because that's kin to bitterness. But resentment is like, you know, you get
Hmm.
to the point you don't want to admit it, because you're trying to be a good Christian. You're trying to
Exactly.
be a good role model. Like, I just got to do this. I got to do this. But you know what? Jesus did all of the work. He said it was
Hmm.
finished. And the only thing we've been called to do is to believe and to
Yes.
seek him with all of our hearts. Right, Cynthia?
Exactly. And he came that we would have life and have an abundant life. How can we
Mm-hmm.
have a more abundant life if we're resenting people, if we're bitter, if we're frustrated, if we can't sleep at night because we're thinking about the next thing we got to
Mm-hmm.
do and how are you going to get this done tomorrow and how you're going to make this happen? That's not an abundant life. And I want my abundant life. I don't want to wait till I get to glory to get it. I want my abundant life down here. He
Mm-hmm.
came that I might have life and have it more abundantly. And I intend to have it. And that's why now the boundaries are set. I'm not going back in the hospital for anyone.
Mm-hmm.
I am going to complete what God called me to do. And then one day, not anytime soon, but one day, I'm going to hear, well done, my good and faithful servant. And I want other people to learn from what I went through. Don't end up in the hospital before you get this message.
Mm-hmm.
Realize that if you've got all of this being put on you, it's not being put on you by God. If you don't have the joy of the Lord and what you are doing, it's
Mm-hmm.
not of God.
That's it. That's it. If it's not easy and not light, it's not God.
Right.
Yoke is
It's
easy.
not God.
Yeah.
It's
And
not God.
if you can't rest, if you can't have peace, peace is rest. If you don't have these attributes of the Spirit, you don't have this fruit, this is fruit of the Spirit, then you are out of sync with Spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And what you want to do is get back in sync. And when you do, your heart will beat, your blood will flow. You will
Hello.
have the
Yes.
energy that you need without having to take a shot. You will realize that all life force, who he is, all life, the source of all life and is life, will flood your entire being. And it is good. I'm so glad you said that, Cynthia. You do not have to wait until you show up in ER to set boundaries. Today is a good day to
Today is
set
the day.
boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
to decide that, wait a minute, I'm headed in that same direction. I've been feeling discomfort in my body. My mind is not resting. I'm having too many racing thoughts in my mind, and I can't
Mm-hmm.
seem to get those under control. So, what we're saying to you today, take a breath. That's life. That's oxygen. Breathe. Meditate. It's not a bad word. Meditate. Be still and know.
Yeah.
Meditate upon the word. Find some inspirational books and materials and begin to read. And we're going to suggest another inspirational book here in just a moment. Cynthia's new book. Find a way to get your mind moving toward positivity, and you will be filled with it. You cannot just throw scripture on up in the air and just say, well, I hope it works.
Mm-hmm.
It begins inside of us. If we are full of resentment and bitterness and anger and animosity and jealousy, all these things, and then we want to say something positive, no, it doesn't work like that. We have to begin with the house. We have to clean the house, find the coin that was lost, find the pearl of great price, find that treasure in this earthen vessel. Go inside and locate that. And the only way we're going to locate the treasure, Cynthia, we've got to be still. We got to get quiet someplace. You won't find it rushing down the interstate on the cell phone. You won't find it that way in the middle of traffic. You're going to, not unless the traffic stalls like it used to a lot of times. You got a lot of time to sit there in the car. But you're going to find it when you find yourself in a quiet place. Sadly, some people have to get to, the hospitals are not so quiet either, but you have to get to a place that you have time to be still. And so while you were in that state, Cynthia, your mind got quiet because you didn't have the to-do list of all the things that Cynthia had to do and the places she had to go. You only had one place to be, and that was room number 9346, whatever. Mm-hmm. You were there. That was going to be your address. Yes. Until your body said, okay, we can leave now. Not the doctors, but your body made that decision.
Right.
Through your refeeding your mind, your body began to respond to what you were doing on the inside. So, Cynthia, you have a new book. And I want to talk about, and please comment if you have any comments to what I just said. You have something you want to add, and then we want to talk about your book here.
Okay, well, I will just add that when I was in the hospital, I got a revelation of how stressed I had been. I found peace laying up in the hospital. And that is not a good place to find peace. But I found it in the hospital. I was no longer running. I was no longer responsible for this, that, and the other. I could just rest. My son came to the hospital, and we had time to just sit and talk and watch television. My mother came. My family doesn't live here in Atlanta. I'm from New Jersey, so my family would come down, and we would enjoy each other. I wasn't saying, wait, I'll be back in a couple hours. I got to go do this. I had peace in the hospital, and I was able to hear from God. And even though the doctors were coming in with all these negative reports, because in the hospital, all you get are negative reports, otherwise you won't be there. But my faith was so strong. I'm like, no, I'm walking out of here. Because I had gone to another level in my relationship with God. I had let all the other stuff go.
Yeah.
So when you let that go, then God has the freedom to come in. And I got that freedom laid up in the hospital.
Sure. Well, that's one way to get it.
That's one way to get it. But I don't suggest going that route.
Exactly. You've written a book, and then I'm going to close this conversation out with some thoughts. here in just a moment, because there's some highlights that I want to make. But you have a book called Destined Even Though You've Been Delayed. Can you tell us how to get that book?
The book is available on Amazon. It's available in paperback, and it's available in an ebook. It's available at, I believe, Barnes and Noble, where you can also get it online. Kindle, you can get it online. And the book is about not so much my story. I share my story at the end of the book, but the book is about overcoming being broken.
Mm-hmm.
Because for a long time I was broken, but I didn't even know I was broken.
Mm-hmm.
And so the book is about the healing process, the steps you take to come back to being whole.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just my journey, but it talks about letting go of the past, letting go of the bitterness, letting go of the anger
Mm-hmm.
and the unforgiveness that you have experienced, and finding your first love, finding your joy, finding your passion. And the book is an inspirational book because it has over 100 famous inspirational quotes from famous people in there. And so for each subject, I have inspirational quotes that will prayerfully and hopefully inspire you. Yeah, this is where I'm at, but I can get through this. I can make it through this. It's not over. Because I say it in the book over and over and over again. This is not the end of your story. This is only a test.
Yeah, yeah.
The end is so much greater than where you are right now. But in order to get to your destiny, you've got to go through the process. And the process is different for every person.
Absolutely.
And the process is hard. And you want to quit. You want to give up. As I say, you want to go back to Egypt. But there's nothing in Egypt for you. You've come too far. You can't go back.
Absolutely.
So get toward the promised land. Your promised land is waiting for you.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what the book is about.
Yeah, Destined, Even Though You've Been Delayed. And you heard Cynthia Jones here today in the conversation. And really, don't let the church kill you. Don't let life get you so busy.
That's another book.
That you lose yourself right here on the Energy Bar. Our conversation today is really the focus of, also the focus of a woman who has come through tremendous odds, has defeated heart disease through faith, through the Word of God, and through prayer, through her own testimony. She shared that with us today. Cynthia, thank you for being here. Those of you who are diagnosed with heart conditions, or you feel stress today, and maybe you don't have a diagnosis, maybe your life is headed in that direction, and this conversation is a wake-up call for you, because you know that you cannot continue the way that you are. You feel as though you don't have enough help to finish your course or your assignments in life. You know, God always gives us disciples or people or networkers or people who can see our vision and get a glimpse of where we're going, and they can share in the process. There is somebody waiting to help everybody. I truly believe that. And you don't have to be a solo performer. You don't have to be, because it's not good that man should be alone, or woe man at that. God will send you help, but you have to embrace that help when it comes, and not feel as though the world is up, saving the world is up to you. Some of the things that will cause heart attacks, and those of you that are at high risk, are people that are smokers, people who lack any form of physical activity, people who are overweight, having a high fat, high salt, or high sugary diet, people who have bad cholesterol or high blood pressure. We've talked about stress here today because many of us can identify with that. A lot of stress in your life causing your blood pressure and your heart rate to go up. And if you learn to laugh, I truly believe that you'll learn to have a happy heart. People who have diabetes are also at risk for having a heart attack or stroke. I pray that something that Cynthia and I've shared today on this energy bar that you can use in your everyday life, we want you to put it on pause, step back, take a break. Focus on 3 major things every day that you need to get done. Everything else will work around those 3 things. Because if you don't get the 50 things you have on your list done this week, then you still feel overwhelmed. So shorten that list to a more doable program. Remember to ask for help from God and from others around you. And you'll find that more people than you think are willing to say yes to you. So no more solo performing, thinking that you can and have to do it all. Pace yourself. Breathe. Learn to live from the source of life. Thank you for joining me for another energy bar. It's always great hanging out with you, my friends. I look forward to hearing from you soon. Write me at Dr. Faye at americaoutloud.com. That's DRFAYE at americaoutloud.com. And don't forget to join me 7/11 every day at 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, including Sundays for Intentional, our faith-based Out Loud radio broadcast. And listen to Life, Liberty, and the Pursuit of Pleasure at 5 p.m. every day, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 11 p.m. Encore, 9 a.m. Europe. It's been great. Kisses and hugs until next time. God bless you now.